Today, saying that because I've got another Australian on once again. But this time a really brilliant, I'm going to describe him as a legend, my guest. He is called Alan Stevens. He is an international profiling and communications specialist, regularly features on national TV, radio, and in the world press, profiling the likes of our leading politicians, TV and sports stars, as well as Britain's royalty. Should I describe you as a royalty then, Alan? He's been referred to by the UK Guardian as the leading authority on reading people globally, and the mentalist meets Dr. Phil by the Herald. All I've got to say is welcome back, Alan.
Thanks very much, Adam. Yep, we've known each other for a little while. We've had quite a few conversations over the last year, which has been good.
We have, yes. Now, for everyone that's going to be tuned in, see who you are, where you're from, and let's get your story heard. And please get this shared. Now, I'm going to start with just quick fire questions for you. Favorite season?
Definitely summer.
Summer?
Yeah.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee. In fact, I've got mine here.
See, I can't drink coffee at this time of night, otherwise I'm going to be up for the rest of the night, so I can't do that. Anyway.
Oh, it's early morning here, so it's okay for me.
Yeah. Pop or rock?
Rock.
Okay. Favorite type of weather?
Favorite type of weather? Oh, yeah. Probably, even though summer is my favorite season, I like the spring weather where it's not too hot, but the sun's out.
Okay. And the last one, I'm going to say Easter or Christmas?
Christmas.
Christmas? Yeah. Okay. And obviously, while we get started, before we get started, all I've got to say is to you, happy Autism Awareness Week. Because obviously for here, it starts on the 29th, which is tomorrow, our tomorrow, which you're already there. You beat us to it. So.
Yeah, well, welcome to the future.
I know. It seems I have a regular with the Australians. I know. I need to get myself over there one day, whenever this lockdown ends.
Oh, you'll have to do that.
Now, obviously, it has been some time before since I've actually had you on the show. Now, just give a little bit of a backstory for people that don't know who you are or never seen you in their lives before. Just a little bit of backstory of who Alan Stevens is.
Okay, well, on a personal level, I'm father of 3 sons that I raised on my own from the age of 4, 11 and 12. Grandparent of 4 grandsons and 2 granddaughters, and live here in Newcastle, Australia, not England, which is about 160 kilometres north of Sydney. I came up to Newcastle in 1975 for a 5-month temporary transfer and haven't gone back to Sydney yet. Because I upset the people down in Sydney by saying the best thing that ever came out of Sydney was the road north, and the best view of Sydney is in the rear vision mirror. But Newcastle's a beautiful little spot. It's plenty of beaches. It takes 20 minutes to get from one side to the other, and life's nice and easy and laid back compared to Sydney. So that's on a personal level. On a business level, I'm a profiler, which means I help people to understand other people more effectively. And I also run the Campfire Project, which is a group for both men and women, where it's safe for them to come along and give themselves permission to tell their stories. And together, we have some very in-depth conversations, panel discussions, etc. And a case of where, under the hashtag of We Together, standing shoulder to shoulder, we work on the problems. We don't look at each other as the problem. And it's become a very active community group, which is where I first met you, Adam.
It was, yeah. To be honest, I actually can't remember how I actually came across it. I can't remember. Probably someone, I don't know, because it's a very private group, so I don't know. I really don't know.
It's a private group, but I put it out to, because when I started, I'd interviewed Henry Johnstone over there in London, and then I interviewed Brian Cardoza in America, and that was one of the two first ones that I interviewed. And I just said to them, guys, you can see what we're doing in here. Who do you reckon that would be, who would you recommend you would invite? Who should we talk to? And I was on the way from Newcastle to Sydney on the train, which is about a 3-hour trip. And I just sent the message when I left Newcastle. All the way to Sydney, I'm answering the connections they'd connected me with. I did a full day in Sydney and 3 hours back on the train, and spent the rest of the afternoon reconnecting with more men and women, and also women as well. And within no time, we had a large group in there. So yes, it is closed, but it's open to anybody to come in as long as they are respectful to everybody else. And so I don't care about gender, religion, background, or anything else. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah, because obviously when I was interviewed last night, or a few nights ago, obviously you uploaded it today, and me and my partner were just sat there listening to it. There's some tears and stuff like that with the things we were both saying, and she was saying, because obviously she's in the Campfire Project and she's been there for just over a year now, and she hasn't come forward yet, but she's thinking about it.
Good. Excellent. See, this is the thing. It's when people feel safe to be able to share their stories. And, it's not just me now doing the one-on-ones. We've got Scott Carson who's doing them. We've got Angela Heiser, young Thomas Graham, and young Indigenous guy here in Newcastle. They're taking those roles on as well. So there's plenty of people to sit and talk to you. And everybody our job is to keep it sacred, hold that space for people, give them the ear that they probably never had, just somebody who is real and who's alive, to actually listen to them. And that's our job, is just to listen to them. And we turn it into a conversation. And so far, everybody's been raving about how much they've enjoyed doing the chats with us, which is great.
And speaking out, it actually ends that stigma also.
Yeah, well, we've had, as I said, I don't care about gender or anything else. I've talked to people from all walks of life. I've talked to men who are transitioned to females who are transitioned to males. Everyone's got a story. I don't care who you are. People with, we call it conditions, Asperger's, autism, and other things like that. And don't we have in this society today, like to give everybody initials of one form or another? We keep labeling them. Well, by having a conversation with somebody, we take them out of that and we treat them as an individual in their own right, separate from everybody else. And it's the first time in a lot of cases for these people to actually get heard for the very first time in their life. And for us to be able to provide that to them, my God, it's such an honour for us to be able to do that.
Exactly. And like I keep repeating myself over and over and over again, labels are just no good. Take the cast of Winnie the Pooh, for example. We fell in love with the characters, not the disabilities, because every of them have got something, depression, autism. It really does not matter. We fell in love with the characters.
Exactly. And that's what I love about it. It's those sort of things, they're entertaining. We get a heart connection to them. And then if we only stop, and I'm just wondering how many people actually realise that all of those animals have a condition of one form or another, the so-called disability, because disability depends on where you're sitting and where you're looking from, how you're looking at it. Now, I've worked with kids with autism and Asperger's, etc., and I don't see any one of them as not having a gift. In fact, everybody on the planet has a gift, because I've learnt with profiling, where psychometric profiling, we like to put people in boxes. Again, we can label them, because that's not about the person we're labeling. That's about us. We need to be able to structure them in a way so that we feel comfortable. Where I come along and go, okay, let's take you out of that box and let's treat you as an individual. Let's look for where your gifts are. And I've never met anybody who hasn't got a gift in one form or another that nobody else has got. Exactly. And so once we realise that, everybody has a uniqueness of one form or another. And if we work on understanding that uniqueness and help them cultivate that, look at what they can create. Look at a lot of our or famous people like what's his name, Richard Branson, dyslexic. Look what he's achieved. Look at Einstein. Up until quite a number of years, he didn't talk to anybody. Everyone thought he was stupid. Look at what he created. There's a young guy on YouTube that I saw. He's has autism. They put him in a helicopter, flew him over the Vatican City, and then they gave him it was a canvas going about 5 meters long, and he drew the city. Yes, he got a couple of the pillars wrong. Out of all of those, he got a couple of pillars wrong. But the fact that is a gift. So if we can find a person's gift and help them grow that gift, my God, what could we create in this world if we stop looking at labeling, we stop looking at trying to find people's disabilities, but look for their strengths instead. Exactly. Incredible.
Because we've all got strengths. It doesn't matter who you are. And I don't believe there is such word as disability. It's an ability. And you just take the DIS away, and there you go. You've got another word.
Find where their particular ability is. It's not another person's responsibility to come and tell us what their strength is. It's our responsibility to create a safe place for everybody else around us so that person can express themselves. It's our job to find the strength in somebody else. We want to make a connection. It's not the person that we want to make the connection with. That's not their responsibility. It's ours. We're the ones who want to make the connection. So parents who have got kids with autism and Asperger's, etc., the parents I've worked with, they've understood their kids. They've talked to them differently. You've changed their environment, and straight away you got a different result. And so the parents take the action. You don't change the child, you change the environment around them. So the parts that get triggered that cause issues for the rest of the society or the people around them, you set the environment up so they don't get triggered, and the child then can, because they're happier, will express themselves more. Their strengths will come out. They'll be able to shine, and they'll grow faster. We don't need to medicate. Some do the medication, but we don't have to medicate to the degree that we're doing it. We're just trying to get people to fit into our desires instead of us going, hang on, we've got a responsibility to help that person shine. As a parent, our job is to not be carpenters or sculptors and turn our kids into anything. Our job as a gardener is to nurture them. Well, why should it be any different to a child who has one of these so-called conditions? Nurture them.
Exactly. And as the saying goes, you can't change other people, but you can change yourself.
That's it. And the moment you change yourself, guess what? We are everybody else's environment. So we change ourselves, we change their environment, which means they then change themselves as well. Because they respond, we all respond to our environment. You go past somebody and smile, they'll smile back. You go past them and scowl at them, they're going to respond in kind. So you change their environment, naturally people will automatically change. But they change because they choose to, not because we force them to.
Exactly. And going back to yourself, obviously you've experienced so much challenges in your life, as well as many others. Let's obviously talk about that before obviously everything else. You're successful business entrepreneur, shall we say?
Yeah, well, it's as I know. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was talking to a psychologist who was quite arrogant towards him and going, "Well, where's your expertise? Where's your knowledge?" And he said, "Well, I got my knowledge from the School of Life." And he said, "But what books? What textbooks?" And it was a case of, and I know the psychologist was saying to him that the books are wisdom. No, they're not. Books are knowledge. Not wisdom is applied knowledge. So unless you can have a library full of books and everything else, and all that knowledge is in there, but unless somebody's reading it and putting it into place, it's a total waste. So it's when you apply things. And this is what I find that when I'm talking to a lot of people, it's the arrogance that they have, thinking that the study they've done makes them more important than everybody else. I know some really well-trained people who are absolutely useless when it comes to dealing with people because they've got no life experiences. So it's the experience that's far more important than the knowledge, because that turns the knowledge into wisdom. But in my case, I was in a perfect position to observe people. When I was young, my father died when I was 3. I lived with my mother and sister, didn't really fit into their household. My sister didn't really have a connection with me at all, and I didn't have a connection with her. It wasn't until I turned 38 that we finally really had a connection. But I grew up as a loner. So I was always observing. I always felt on the outside. And so that's where a lot of things started for me. But my mother was quite an accomplished woman. She was a carpenter. She did all sorts, everything around the house she did herself. So at a very early age, I learned how to do all those things. I learned how to paint. I actually painted our house in 2 weekends, all the way around twice. And that's in advance for my sister's 21st birthday party. So I was about 18 when I did that. So I had strong work ethics. But then I moved into what was our Postmaster General's department, which then became Telstra or Telecom, and then Telstra. So with them, I joined there. I got knocked back twice. They finally accepted me after we had enough people drop out. 10 years later, I was the youngest supervising technician in Australia. So I've always been in at the deep end and achieved. Also a surf lifesaver. It was another area. So it's been all the life experiences of different things that I've been in that I've learned more than anything else. So if anybody out there is thinking, well, I haven't got an education or anything else, think about what situation you're in and what you can learn from that, because life experiences are going to be the best learning experience you can ever get, and you'll get your wisdom from there.
Yeah, you will. And I can't recommend Alan enough, because he's actually one of the people that's helped me change my life. When I was actually introduced into the Campfire Project, which also we'll cover in a short while. So everyone that's actually tuned in, please get yourself into that Campfire Project group. It's a private group, but it's open to all, as Alan was discussing earlier. It really doesn't matter. There's definitely confidentiality in there. And
all you've got to do is be respectful.
Yeah. And as he says on his very first video, obviously he welcomes people with open arms, and if there's any bullying, he'll kick them out straight away. It's like, see you later.
That's it. So there's no need for bullying. You generally find the people who bully are people who have been bullied themselves. People who abuse have been abused themselves. It's because they don't have any other way of knowing. The only way they've got is what they've been taught. And people don't. Now, it's like raising children. Kids will listen to us to a certain degree, but most of the time they're not listening. They're watching. And so it's our behaviours they learn from. So if we don't treat them the right way, then the end result is they're going to grow up and they're going to become bullies. They're going to become abusers. And so what we do is anybody who comes into the Campfire Project, the whole idea there is to created a safe place, but a place that they can feel that there's a home there for them. And if they don't want to jump into a one-on-one chat with us, that's fine. Sit in the background until you're ready. There's no rush for that. There's no one saying, oh, you've got to do this by that stage. Because I know there's a new belief now that if you're going through grief and you're still feeling the effects of grief after so many weeks, then they've labelled that a condition. God help us. Grief will take what period it takes, and that's going to be individual. It's all part of all the experiences we've had in our life, the connection we have with that person, how we handle things. And for the rest of us, our job is to hold a safe space for those people so they can work through it in their own time. And that's the same thing with the Campfire is about. It's a safe place for people to be able to do that. Come in, sit. When you're ready, put your hand up, do a one-on-one. Those when they're ready, they can come into the panel discussions. And all you've got to remember all the way through is that people are respecting you, you respect them. If you don't agree with what somebody says, don't argue with them. Just say, well, look, I don't understand how that works. Can you explain it to me? Because while you're doing that, there's no ego then. You actually get a chance to understand where that person's coming from. You may not agree with them. During the conversation, you might change your mind completely. The other person might change their mind completely. You might meet somewhere in the middle. or you might just agree to disagree. Yeah, and the world's made up of differences. We don't all have to be the same. If we were, I think I'd want to get off the planet, because utopia is not going to be utopia for too long, because where's the upside and where's the downside of life that we can't pick where the joy is if we don't have the tough times as well to be able to recognize what joy is in comparison.
Exactly. And over the last year, I have gained so much connections from people in Campfire Project, like yourself, Scott Carson, Sharon Chamello. That's where I met all of you, inside the Campfire Project. And people know Sharon is a regular on here, and she just says it as it is.
Yeah. Well, she just sent me a message saying she had to go to school, so she was missing the live, but she'll be watching the replay.
Yeah, she messaged me before about that. Yeah. She's a bit gutted, though, isn't she? But anyway, we love her.
But see, that just shows the connection that everybody's got in the group. It's a family, and the family now is getting on to 1,800 people all over the world. We've interviewed on. Well, the only two places I haven't interviewed in so far has been the North and South Pole. But by the way, I'm working on it. If anybody knows anybody working in those areas in research huts or whatever, and they've got internet, do an introduction for me. I'd love to have a chat with them.
Hey, you could find them on LinkedIn. Who knows?
That's it. Because let's face it, you're in that sort of. I guarantee they've got an interesting story to tell. Why they're doing that work? What is it like living in those environments? So this is the pleasure of being able to sit and listen to other people talk. I'm as greedy as anything because I get to hear all their stories.
Yeah.
And in that, somewhere around about 200 of the 200, or actually over 200 of those, I've done the one-on-ones. So all of those people, I've heard their stories, and every story, regardless of who it's come from, has been fascinating, because everybody is different. Therefore, everybody's got a story. Their story's unique. And I get the pleasure of sitting there talking to them.
I can just picture it now. Alan Stevens interviews an Eskimo.
Well, somebody said, do the penguins talk?
Who knows? Hey, Pingu does. Anyway. So it just goes to show, doesn't it, that Campfire Project is that successful. You've even won awards through it.
Yeah, well, last year I was up for 8 different awards, local, national and international awards for the business, with the Campfire Project was as a finalist in a national award for the wellness program and initiative for Australia. So didn't win it, but to be one of the 10 finalists Australia-wide, it was showing that it's starting to get results.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine it now, you being up for an award, but the award ceremony is based in London.
Well, that's you never know what's on the cards, because we're definitely becoming a global community. With COVID, okay, it pushed everybody physically distant. And by the way, I hated the word socially distanced, because that was totally wrong. We were socially isolated, but a lot of that was people's own doing. We were physically distanced, but I've never been more social in my life. The number of one-on-ones, panel discussions, they went through the roof during COVID.
Yeah.
And so it's what we make it. And that's the main thing. Yes, we do need physical touch, but when we don't have that, the next best thing is to have those conversations. And we are global. As I say, I'm talking to you today. I've just done another interview about an hour ago with a guy in America. And it was the other night. It was in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. Before that, it was Israel. So, we're connected globally,
exactly.
Which is what I love.
Yeah. So obviously, talk to us about the clients you came across, even from Disney Films. Come on, now you've got me intrigued there, Alan.
Well, with Disney Films, that was quite interesting. Disney and Gillette were doing a joint launch. It was the Rogue One Star Wars movie. The Disney had taken over Lucasfilms, and they were now going to unveil all of the new outfits, like the new black stormtroopers, where all the previous ones were whites. The new black ones were about 6 inches taller in height. All of the Rogue One Rebels outfits. At the same time, Disney, Gillette, I should say, were launching a new razor, and they were using the actors from Rogue One as part of the ad. And I got a call from a PR group in America saying, would I be interested in a job in either Iceland or America or England? And I said, yes. And they said, well, we can't tell you what it is yet, but we'll have to come back to you. And I thought, sounds like another internet scam. About 6 months later, you got this in early 2016. 6 months later, they came back to me about August and said, look, it's we can tell you now, it's a joint venture with Disney and Gillette. What we'd like to do is fly you to London, to Pinewood Studios, where we're bringing in 120 journalists from around the world. And your job will be to explain to them the stories that the face tells before you utter a single word. And I went, okay, this is interesting. So I ended up signing up. And I said, well, by the way, you know, Alan Pease and there's other people. I think Alan was in England at the time. I said, why don't you use him? And I said, how did you find me anyway? And they said, oh, we saw a video of yours on YouTube. At that time, it was 700,000 views, more than any of Dr. Phil's or anybody else in that, you know, in that area of profiling had achieved. And it's a dreadful video, by the way. It's shocking as far as the performance on it, because it was a friend interviewing me. I filmed it while he was asking the questions. And then when he went home, I sat down and answered the questions and then spliced it all together. So he's asking the questions in pretty much monotone, and I'm answering them in excitement. And so it's blah, blah, blah. It's like, but they seem to have loved it. They checked me out on social media and came back to me on Facebook and everything else. And they said, well, no, we want you to come over. And I said, well, what if I can't come? And they said, who are you getting? They said, oh, we're not going to do that segment. And I went, okay. So that was quite impressive. It had been the largest amount I'd charged for any job up to that stage. It was a 10-day holiday away from Australia by the time I left and came back. All the expenses paid, my fee paid, and chauffeur driven everywhere for 3 hours work, a 10-day holiday. Thank you very much. Anybody out there in that similar position who's got a job like that, give me a call. I'd love to do another one. It was brilliant. So they brought the journalists in. They'd set what looked like 4 escape pods in the centre. One was a hair groomer from London, and he was talking about how to shape the beards and other things like that, those that had beards and haircuts. And the other 2 were the Gillette scientists talking about how they do all their research. And I was in pod number 1, and the journalists had started asking me how it all works. Found the easiest way to do it was just stand there with all of them around me and just start profiling each and every one of them, and just saying to the colleagues and everything else, looking at one going, this is how this person likes to think, this is how they behave and all the rest of it, and their colleagues going, yes. And that's what I did for 3 hours. So a great job on that one. So they're the entertaining type of jobs, but the ones I love the most, and especially with this being Autism Week, is that 10 years ago, I had a young boy, 6 years old at the time. His mother, well, first of all, she was running a singles group called Busy and Single. She's a single mum running hotels, so time poor. And but I ran an event for her, which was called How to Avoid the Psychopath and Other Practical Dating Tips. Had some fun with that. When we finished, she asked if I could profile her son. And I'd said, look, yes, I can. I said, but will he sit still? And she said, no. She said, well, can you take some photographs and send them to me? So from the photographs she sent to me in the style I wanted them taken, I did a profile. She took that back to the school. It was a written profile in those days. Today I do an audio one and link all the traits and talk about what will push their buttons and how to structure things. But hers was just a written one, but she gave it to the after schools care and to the teachers, playing each against the other. She was a smart cookie. She said to each one, the others were doing it, and if they didn't do it, it would fail and it'd be on their heads. And neither party wanted to be held responsible, so they put it in place. Where he was told that, and she was told he would never do presentations in front of the class. At the age of 7, he was doing presentations in front of the class. A year and a half later, The next testimonial she did for me, they realised they didn't need the psychologist anymore, and with the doctor's approval, they reduced his medication. By reducing his medication, it meant that she was able to communicate with him more effectively. He was more alert, so more responsive to the conversations, not just dumbed down to fit the system, but now the system is being structured around him so that the best of him can start to shine. Age of 11, they had he wanted a birthday party with all his mates from school, and she thought that was going to be a disaster, but went ahead with it. Very supportive mum. And she came back and she said it was noisy. It was just a noisy boys' party, though. No problems at all. He's 16 now, and he's doing things that, she sent me a message that had me in tears a couple of weeks back. There was a girl at school who'd put a blog up saying that she'd been kicked out of home. Her grandmother didn't want her either. She's, really in a bad way. Not one person stood up except young Jack did. He went and saw her, said, right, we've got to do something about this. He knew his mother would support him, so he went and saw his mother. The end result, because she went into care and ended up in hospital while she was in care. And so with their help, she's back with her mother and with the right sort of care around her now. Now, he was the only one at the age of 16 who took the responsibility to stand up. So don't tell me these kids have got disabilities. They have an ability if you can find it. It's our job to find it. The only weakness is us, our attitude that we haven't got time for them. He's just one of many kids that I've worked with and their families. Every parent who's that's come to me and I profile their kids has a better connection with their children. Because at the end of the day, kids don't, and by the way, if any parent out there thinks that their kids are out to get them, they're not. Kids aren't out to try and break you. They're out to see whether you can hold. They will test you. They want to know whether you're going to put boundaries in place and hold those boundaries. Because this helicopter parenting where you remove everything away from the kids and you wrap them in cotton wool, you're actually robbing the child of growing. The idea is our job as that protector is to, and gardener looking after them, is to set the environment up so that they're safe, but they grow within that environment. So we put the right boundaries in place. And in that way, any child can then grow to become a responsible adult. If you wrap them up in cotton wool, they're going to be useless adults. And what happens when you're not around to look after them anymore? So helicopter parenting is not about the child. That's about the ego of the parent. And in fact, I call it child abuse.
Exactly. Yeah. See, obviously, I can speak from that because we've got autistic child ourselves. And obviously our daughter's being assessed for it as well. And obviously we are struggling with our daughter at the minute because we feel like she's got a delay as well as well as Lucas does, because he's got an 18-month delay and he's 9 years old. But this is where the confusion comes in. He's 9 years old, he's got an 18-month delay, so really he's still 8. But he's got a mind of like an 18-year-old.
So it comes down to how you connect with them. It's in understanding them and talking to them in that particular way. And it doesn't matter who the child is. So the whole thing is that you want to make a better connection with them. I'll give you an example. There was a father who complained about his daughter who was always, she's very headstrong. And she's always, he was trying to get her to fit into a mold. And as we said to him, well, forget about that for the moment. She was 16 at the time. How long is she going to be at home? When do you reckon she's going to leave home? Oh, she'll leave home, probably 18, but she might go to university and she might stay at home while she's at university if the university's close and all that sort of thing. We just let him go on. And we said, right, when she goes out into the real world, do you think anybody's going to be able to take advantage of her? And he went, oh, God, no. God help them if they try. And I go, right, so why would you want us to change her now for the couple of years that she's going to be with you and take away that strength that she has that's going to keep her in good stead for the rest of her life? And he went, oh, well, we virtually told him his therapy was over. He didn't need any more therapy because it was about, and it was then a case of, well, talk to her this way, connect with her in this way so that you have adult to adult conversation. Because at the moment, it's his daughter, so he's having an adult to child conversation. Once he realized that he could change the way he talked to her, they would turn it into adult to adult conversations. There'd be a respect between the two of them. Then there'd be a want from her to actually work with him and not upset him. And that's what we have in an adult situation. With children, we're trying to guide them. So it's adult to child. We're looking and talking down to them, but we're trying to guide them in a way as they grow up, their conversations go from a child conversation to an adult conversation. It's just a normal transition that we're looking for. So it's how do we talk to them to be able to get that proper transition?
Exactly. And this leads me on to, because it's obviously Autism Awareness Week where you are, there, hello future. What do you think should happen? Because I've had a lot of messages, a lot of feedback on this. What do you think the education should do when it comes to people with not just autism, but with other disabilities like autism, ADHD, dyspraxia? What do you think the education should put into place?
Well, let's put it in a proper
understanding.
Yeah, let's put in a proper context here to start with. If we look at kids who are gifted, 18 to 24% of the gifted children drop out of school. The problem is that we have a school system that looks, and it'll be the same in England, same in America. It's the Western way in which we do things. We're on a bell curve. So it goes up, circulates, then comes back down. The kids who are in that larger central area, they're the ones that we treat as normal. What we're really doing is trying to fit them into boxes, get them to fit the system, and then we forget about the gifted ones and we forget about the other end of the gifted ones, because you won't hear me talking about those that have problems and those that are gifted. Both ends are gifted. Once we get through our thick skulls, we'll start treating them differently. But the education system needs to start understanding the children. Why did schools come about? Well, we used to live on the farms. Then we wanted people to work in mines. We wanted them to work in factories. You live on a farm, you might put in 6 hours a day. You're out of the heat in the middle of the day, siestas and things like that. If you're growing crops, you can't be out there pulling the crops out all the time and see if they're growing. You leave them. You do other things. But when we're working down a mine or in a factory, we've got to do the same thing all day for 11, 12, 15 hours a day. And so we had to educate people. And so virtually we're creating fodder for factories. Now, that's okay. But when we turn around, we're still doing the same thing. We're in a technological age. We've got so many other things, but we're still trying to get those kids and whack them into a box and tell them this is what you should do because we want that job filled. How about finding out where their gifts are and matching their personalities or the careers to their personalities so they can then go and do the studies that will fit their personalities? So when it comes to profiling somebody, a young child, I can tell you what they're going to be like before they get to school. I can tell you what hobbies and sports will suit their personalities. Then as they're at school and before they pick their final subjects, before they leave school, we can know what careers will suit them. Instead of telling them, well, this is a job you should be doing, because at the moment what we do is we tell them you should be an accountant because you'll make a fortune as an accountant. Well, you probably need to make a fortune because you're going to be, if you're in a career that doesn't suit you, you're going to be miserable, which means it's going to affect your emotional health and everything else. You need a lot of money to cover your medication. But if you're able to find the career that suits you, you're going to be happier. So the idea is, instead of giving them the job guide and go read this, it looks like a white telephone book, we give it to them, we go, here's a couple of careers that may suit you. Go and check these out in the job guide. So it becomes the yellow pages. We guide the child through to choosing the one that fits their personality. We don't tell them what to do, but we guide them so that they can then start looking in the right place, because you push the boat away from the shore, unless you set the rudder up to start with, it could go anywhere. So we set the rudder up and then we let them sail their own boat, but we guide them to do that. And in that case, they'd be doing the jobs that they love to do. But there are I put a course together for parents and for school teachers, which there are 3 traits which I guarantee, depending on the combination, will be a problem at school. It'll be one that the kids will quite often get labelled with having a problem when they just don't fit the education system. And so it takes about 47 minutes to do it, to try and get the education systems to take it on. Well, I've worked with the Minister for Education in Australia here in New South Wales in 2012 and 2016. Both times the letters I got back was, kids are the most important thing to us. We spend X million dollars on the kids each year, but we don't endorse third-party programs. Not once did I ask them to endorse. I asked them to check it out for themselves, to test it. But then sitting with the head psychologist for New South Wales Education in 2016, as she said to me, yes, all the stats I put in front of them were absolutely true. They're going backwards. But if we continue doing what we've always done, sooner or later we'll get a different result. And at that point, I wanted to introduce her to Einstein, because I think he said that was the definition of insanity. But that's what our education system is looking at. So it's a matter of teaching the teachers how to read the children and speak to each of them in the way that they need to be spoken to, know how they learn and know where they're going to miss things so that they can compensate for those things. If the teacher has those skills, it takes the pressure off the teacher. The child grows quickly. The teacher then is going to enjoy their teaching life. The principal is going to be happy because the teachers aren't taking sick leave because they're stressed out. They're not going to be stressed out. And then the parents are going to be off the principal's back because their kids are succeeding. Because now, it used to be when I was a kid, if I took home a bad report card, my mother would be into me as to why I got a bad report card. Today, the parents go to the teachers and the principal and say, why didn't you teach my child? And it's nice.
See, I was like that because obviously with Lucas, he's obviously within the 1% when it comes to his maths. Because obviously there's these different types of methods. And I'm going to take maths, for example. There's that SGT method. Now, there's only 1% of the world population of schools that actually teaches that. Only 1%. And the 99% are just, it's the long way around in teaching. And obviously that's where obviously Philip Chan comes into place, because obviously he teaches it. And I put that forward to the school, and they're like, "Oh no, under these government guidelines, education system, and all that, we have to teach it this way." I'm like, "Well, no, you don't. Can you show me that it does actually say that?" And they went, "Oh, well, exams and stuff like that, you have to use one method." I'm like, "Can you show me that as well?" And what it says, and they just couldn't. They just couldn't, and that's where the communication is. So obviously, I ended up doing that, but I'm actually seeing, and I've spoken to my partner about this, I'm actually believing Lucas will be kicked out of school at some point, because obviously the figures, and I actually uploaded them, 27% of children with autism, get excluded from school over the 4% that don't have autism.
That's it. So, and first of all, if there's any teachers listening to what I've been saying, don't take it that I think there's something wrong with teachers. I'm pointing at the system. I have never met a teacher yet who has become a teacher for the long holidays and the high pay, because they don't get long holidays. They're actually working in their holidays. And if you're doing that into an hourly rate, they're not getting a high pay either. They put a lot of work in. We have a system which is just stuffed. That's all there is to it. And the teachers have to work within that. So this is another reason why the teachers are stressed, because a lot of them would like to do things differently, but they can't. They have to do it one way, and that's it, because we're creating little robots to be able to go out and work in jobs. So it's not the teacher's fault. It's not the principal's fault either, because the principal has to manage everything, and they've got the government putting pressure on them to, we've got to get the stats. We've got to show that we've got high performance and everything else, because we're comparing ourselves to other countries. It's all that ego stuff. Instead of going, okay, what do we do for the kids? Because if we do it right for the kids, it's going to be better for the teachers. The principals are going to have better results in the school, so it's going to be better for them. And the government then can start looking better as well. But as long as the government is so wrapped up in just getting jobs filled and having stats and everything like that right, then you're going to have all these problems coming through. We just got to start putting the kids first, not teaching them subjects, but teach them how to think. I guarantee that your son, if people were able to sit down and understand his way of doing maths, how many children get told they get the right answer, but they're told you can't do it that way? Why can't you do it that way? If that way worked for them and they're getting the right results.
Exactly. And this
I get on my high horse on this one. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologise, Alan, because you're absolutely accurate. And this was my ongoing debate with the school for a good 2, maybe even 3 weeks solid about this. Because I was basically saying, obviously I'm not attacking any teachers, because what the school have been with Lucas and Tegan, they've been absolutely fantastic, and I can't praise them enough. But it doesn't matter what method to teach, whether it's the SGT method, whether it's the school method. Well, this school method, so they say, is getting the accurate answer. So where the hell is the argument?
That's it. The whole thing comes down to, because everyone's got to be regimented. This is the problem. If everyone conforms, then they feel that they've done the right thing. Really, if they looked at it and realised that all of those kids they forced to conform are unhappy, and if they're unhappy, they're not reaching their maximum potential. If they're not reaching their maximum potential, they're not going to be happy in the work they're doing. That means that the companies they're working for aren't going to make as much money as they could. If people are unhappy, then they're going to be unhappy at home as well. And now we've got domestic violence and bullying and everything else. If you want to work on all those areas, start teaching the kids the way they need to be taught. Put the kids first, not your system. And you'll see that over the next few generations, we will see a reduction in all those other areas. At the moment, we've got all these groups fighting to get rid of domestic violence, fighting to get rid of bullying and everything else. And every one of those conditions or those situations has escalated, especially through COVID. Yeah. So what we're doing at the moment, trying to fix symptoms, is never going to solve a problem. If you have domestic violence, find out where the domestic violence is coming. Why is it there? Instead of just trying to blame somebody, find the cause of it. It's like going to the doctor. If we've got a condition, we've got an illness or something, we want the doctor to find what the cause was so we can get something to get rid of the cause. But everything else we do in life, no, we're looking at symptoms. It's crazy.
Don't get me started with the doctors. Don't get me started.
What I'm trying to get across here is that we just need to look at things differently. We need to take a different approach. If what we've always done isn't getting the proper results, then do something different. See, people look at, when we looked at gender equality and everything else, we've had just recently, I heard there was a couple of universities that banned the International Men's Day. And I was absolutely shocked. And I thought, why did those people want to hurt themselves? What actually happens? Like, at the moment, there was a school here in Australia that got all the boys to get up and apologise for being boys. That is child abuse. They said it was inappropriate. No, the people should have been sacked who put that in place. That was child abuse, because we're telling the boys that there's something wrong with them because they're boys. How do we expect them to grow up to be good men if we're telling them there's something wrong with them to start with? So we create problems. By helping the men come into the Campfire Project and bring them from boyhood into manhood and help them become better men, not the man, but a man, to be the best version of themselves, and therefore wanting other people, both men and women around them, who are the best version of themselves, and not trying to be the man or the woman, which is in competition and therefore trying to push everybody else down. We are standing together, #we together. We're standing shoulder to shoulder looking at the problems and working together. In that state, we move forward. So when we help men to become better men, who are the recipients? Their partners, their children, their communities. And then they turn around and they ban International Men's Day. And I'm going, why did you want to hurt your own situation greater than what it already is now? Celebrate the men. Let the men who are doing the right thing know that they're doing the right thing, so they do more of the right thing. And instead of talking about good men or bad men, talk about boys and men. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care how old you are. You could be 90 going to your grave. If you're still acting like a boy, let's call them boys. Don't call them bad men. You're either a boy or you're a man. Same thing with girls. You're either a girl or a woman. When you have the right heart, you're treating everybody else with respect and everything else, then we'll call that person a man or we'll call them a woman, depending on their gender. Outside of that, they're boys and girls. And let's face it, no bloke likes to be called a boy. If you're calling him up and saying you're doing the wrong thing, sorry, boy, you act like a man, we'll call you a man. I guarantee you get better changes than just turning around and calling him a bad man, because they don't care. They're still a man as far as they're concerned.
Amen to that.
You can say I'm a bit of a radical.
No. Come on, I've never seen you do this. I'm loving it.
Oh, this is a lot of stuff. I've just been seeing so many things lately. Yesterday, the last 3 days was the online men's group. We had about 120 speakers on that group running groups at the same time. We had Kenny Mamarella de Cruz from good mate of ours now in the Campfire Project, whole bunch of other people, Nathan Mioli, a whole bunch of others, all coming in and talking. And all these men coming in because they want to be better men. The men out there at the moment, if you allow them to speak, and that's what we find in the Campfire Project, when we create a safe place for the men to speak, they open up and they just go right into their emotions. The only reason we don't normally is because, well, we don't know how to, or we feel like we're being criticised when we do it because we're not getting it right. Well, if you've got a safe place, you can fumble through it, and it's not long before you can do it the right, come across better again. And that's what's happened in the Campfire Project. But 3 days of all these men coming in and all this camaraderie and all this connection, don't tell me that, don't turn around and tell me that, tell my mates to stop raping you. Because I don't have rapists in my circle of friends. I have men in my circle of friends, good men. And I'm not going to go out and insult them to make them feel less of who they are, to create a problem that doesn't exist in the first place if I don't create it. So together we solve the problems. We don't solve it in these little tribes that are fighting each other. We just get more fights.
Exactly. And obviously, final question for you, because I know it's like 11 minutes and it's midnight here. But hey, I don't care. I really don't care, because it's getting a good message out here. Final one is, where would you see Alan Stevens, yourself, in 12 months' time?
Well, one of the things that I've always I've always said to people is, a true leader makes themselves redundant. With the Campfire Project, I built the bus, so to speak. I've been driving the bus, but now the best position to be sitting in is a passenger seat, because in the passenger seat, you get to see more. You're still going on the journey, but somebody else is driving the bus. And we've got that. We've got a number of people who have stepped up. They're doing one-on-ones. They're doing the panel discussions. So that'll freeze me up, because I'm no longer in a prison where if I'm indispensable, I can't grow from that position. So I've got other people taking those roles on, so I can do more. I can see the Campfire Project growing. We've already built some collaboration with online shopping and everything else to bring more money back in to go to charities, because the Campfire Project is my not-for-profit, my passion project, so to speak. And the only person who doesn't make money through that is me. A lot of the people who have come in and told their stories, coaches, they're picking up clients and therefore helping the people in the group. But that's one area. And then the other one is with what I do, more people, because my focus is to create and train my competition on the profiling side. I've had a dear friend, Naomi Tickle, an English lady who lives in California, who's now in her 80s. She taught me the facial feature side of things, how to profile somebody from their photographs or when they walk past me in the street. And now it's to teach more people, because as you know, I've trained some of the federal police, the tax office, and other large organisations. This stuff works, but my focus now is to create create more competition. So there will never be my competition, they're my strategic alliance, but then create more online resources that they can use. So I can see a lot more people with the skills out there and with this higher standard, and me not having to do so much running around. I can then really focus on creating stuff that others can use. And that way, when I pass, this stuff will still be going. Because as I say, what you do for yourself dies with you, but what you do for others and for the community isn't always will be eternal. And that's what I'm doing, is working towards leaving that legacy.
And you know what? You're doing a fantastic job of it.
Thank you.
And all I've got to say is thank you for coming on. I know we've gone on long enough, but I'm loving every second of it. Please don't be a stranger. I want you on my phone again. I really do.
Will do.
Absolutely. And for everyone that's tuned in, thank you. Please share this in awareness. I know Alan's going to be sharing this in the campfire, I think.
Yeah.
You know. And yeah, all I've got to say is thank you to all. I'm going to end this podcast now. Please tune in tomorrow. Well, I can say tomorrow because it's not midnight yet. And I've got 2 podcasts. I've got one at 7:30 with Anthea Morphitis. We're going to discuss why we need law of attraction, because that's what it's about. And second one, we're going to have humour with Miss Staying Alive. Humour for our mental health, I don't know. Alan, you really need to tune into that one. And that's at 10 p.m. That's at 10 p.m.
Sounds like I'll definitely have to.
Oh, yeah. Staying Alive. It's like, okay. With an American as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be able to laugh at ourselves. If we laugh at ourselves, we're in a much healthier state.
Exactly. We need it. Because without humour, what kind of world is it?
That's it.
And that note, please stay strong, everyone, and I will end this now. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.